I narrowly avoided being murdered by my psychotic roommate. I'm a 36-year-old woman living in Sweden. I've worked in mental health care for the last 18 years, primarily with individuals suffering from psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. For 9 years, I worked at a group home, where I developed close relationships with my coworkers, particularly 2 other women. In the final years of my time there, a new coworker, whom I'll refer to as M, joined our team, and the 4 of us became very close. M was a quiet, shy, and friendly person, and we got along well. However, she was often on long-term sick leave due to her own mental health struggles, so we didn't see each other much at work. Nonetheless, she always attended our after-work dinners, and we stayed in touch even when she wasn't well enough to work full-time. M confided in us that she had a history of schizophrenia, like the patients we worked with, but she was on medication and had not experienced any psychotic episodes for years. With my background in psychiatry and extensive experience with schizophrenia, I had no reservations about being friends with someone with a diagnosis like hers. Even after everything that happened, my feelings about this haven't changed.